I'm sure I'm not the first one that made a video talking about Berserk's themes and the ultimate message it tries to convey. Many people on the site have already done that before me, and it's real no surprise considering how life-changing and impactful this manga is to so many people. But in recent years, to me, it almost seems like Berserk has been misunderstood for something else by a certain group of people. It's mostly Twitter, since Twitter has no reading comprehension whatsoever. I mean, look at Chainsaw Man, no one understands Chainsaw Man there, I mean, literally no one. And because these people, I feel as if I simply have to make this video, because they obviously don't understand what Berserk is trying to say and what Miura was trying to convey through its many themes. Instead, people looking at the manga and saying to themselves, oh my god, Guts is such a Sigma male, he never stops, he's on the grind, for real, he's just like me, for real. Or maybe even worse than that, Berserk is a story about Guts killing huge monsters, because these are very surface level deductions of what Berserk is trying to say. Now, of course, I'm not saying Miura tried to tell you this one single universal message and nothing else, because there are many things to take from Berserk, and many things Miura is in fact trying to say with this story. I just don't want people taking something from Berserk that doesn't exist, or having their own headcanon about Berserk and its meaning. I'll talk about how I see Berserk and what it means to me, or at least what I think Berserk's central message is. Berserk is a story that has so many different plot threads, so many different but also fleshed out characters, no matter how minor they are, but most importantly, many different themes, ideas, and how it constructs and deconstructs them whole. There are many different approaches I can take to this video exactly because Berserk offers so much to us as the audience, and yet there's but one single central thread that I feel connects everything Berserk offers into this one consistent and giant masterpiece we know today. And that idea is, in my opinion, human relationships. And to preface this part, there will be major spoilers to Berserk in this video. If you haven't already, give Berserk a try. It is genuinely one of the best things I've got to experience pretty much ever. You see, where everything in the manga starts is in the Golden Age arc, a period in Guts' life that shapes him up to be the person he is to become in the future. And what's characteristic of Guts in this period, or at least at the start of the Golden Age arc, is his detachment from other people. Guts is basically all alone, going from battlefield to battlefield. He is a very violent and aggressive person, showing signs of hostility even to a soldier that tries to praise Guts after a fight. Guts is utterly alone, and borderline scared of people, not wanting to come in contact with them in any way. And throughout the manga, we see Guts do horrible things, the Black Swordsman arc encapsulating how horrific Guts can be in many different situations, because of that malice and rage he feels. But also, once you come back to read those chapters, true and utter despair after what transpired in front of him not so long ago. But it's through human relationships that Guts starts acting a lot more empathetic and human towards other people, both when young and when he becomes an adult. When young, his hostility seems to disappear when he enters the Band of the Hawk, and even then, he has a hard time accepting the things in front of him and the people that have already accepted him. He's very wary of people around him, but his encounter with Griffith changes him and by extension, his life. In a sense, he is very similar to Griffith, in the sense that he cannot open up to other people, especially because he had been experiencing traumatic events left and right ever since he was born. But the main difference between them is that Guts does change through meeting the Band of the Hawk, as he finds comfort and starts talking and opening up to Casca, the woman eventually accepting him into her own heart. In turn, this makes us see that Guts, as inhumane and hostile as he might seem, is actually a very great man, albeit troubled and rough. The same cannot be said for Griffith. Griffith is someone the audience sees as a god, and by all means, Miura intended for him to be this way. He looks otherworldly, noble. His design is angelic. He is a beautiful man that looks flawless, almost like a god among men. But if Berserk does anything right, it's that looks can be deceiving. That people, no matter how great of an opinion we have of them, are conceiving and will do anything to reach their desires. Desire is the root of all evil, and his title as the King of Desire once he becomes Femto by extension means that Griffith is evil at his core, his essence lacking human compassion and empathy. But how and why did he become Femto? Unlike Guts, Griffith can't open up to people ever. We and the participants of the story see him as a god, never making a mistake in his judgment, always having a plan that never fails. He does questionable things for his dream. In fact, he's a man that will do anything to achieve his own dream. But even so, even as such a godly figure that never struggles, he still feels remorse that he has to walk over a mountain of corpses to reach his dream. He too is human and feels pain and insecurity in his own journey, but he can't open up. The moment he tried to open up for Casca, he immediately switched back to his godly personality once he realized Casca wants to see him that way, and that she is not consoling or comforting him. In truth, Griffith is lonely. By himself, he does everything with only his own power. But with Guts' entry into his life, Griffith is finally gaining a true friend, or at least Griffith sees him that way. He's the first person he kind of starts opening up to, as he is the closest thing Griffith has to a friend and an equal. Griffith doesn't realize it, but Guts is his only friend. He doesn't realize it because of his own policy of no friends on the battlefield, and because he doesn't understand humans and human relations on an elementary level, and Guts' existence in his life goes against his own logical policy. So when Guts leaves, he is left utterly broken. We know Griffith is a control freak, but in this scene it almost seems like Guts is the one controlling Griffith, even if that might not be true. Guts is in truth something Griffith can't control, which is why he is his adversary later on. This isn't something Griffith can deal with alone, even going so far as to say that he is the only one that made him forget about his dream. There is no one to comfort Griffith here, as everyone in the band sees Griffith as something that is leagues above them in every way, something unapproachable, like a god. As he spirals into depression, Griffith made his decimating blunder by searching for comfort from Charlotte, only to spiral into lust and commit a crime. In other words, he made a mistake. And we, as the audience, got used to seeing Griffith never make a single mistake. So when he gets captured, we expect him to get out of it somehow. When he gets imprisoned, we think he has a master plan to get out. Even after a year of torture, after becoming a walking corpse, which, well, he isn't really walking, so a living one, I guess, we still think he's gonna make a comeback and lead everyone into victory again. But alas, nothing. He is still human, and now he is as good as dead. A pitiful sight, one that shatters our vision of Griffith. Before, he could assume control of a kingdom. Now, he can't even assume control of his legs. Everyone around Griffith pities him. He is a living corpse that takes up space, food, and medicine. And because of that, Griffith runs away, not wanting everyone that admired him to see him in that state. His helplessness only emphasized even more by Griffith not being able to take his own life. Griffith even imagines a future where Casca is his future wife and he is living a complacent and quiet life, knowing that Casca, who was unable to let go of such a hurt Griffith, forever longs for Guts, even naming their kid with his name. And this life disgusts Griffith, knowing that he has to let go of his dream for this life to come true. And there, Griffith thinks about Behelit as his only escape from this calamity of his. And at his lowest point in life, he summons the God Hand. And through the heinous acts he commits, he becomes nothing short of a monster, mad at Guts for seeking comfort by Casca, something he never got. And as a direct consequence of this event, of the man he aspired to be equal to becoming a monster, Guts slowly himself starts becoming one. An inhumane thirst for blood, a man unable to cope, fueled by his malice, to continue killing and to bask in his own hatred. Guts too was also breaking, borderline abandoning Casca, not being able to look at her like that. Later on, his malice and hatred growing as his sadness grows all the more, hurting Casca and making her forever scared of him. And I think it's here where the core message of Berserk lies, how human relationships affect us. Guts, after conviction, finds himself under such malice and rage to the point where he can't control it. He is hostile, aggressive, and combative, just like he was as a kid, when it got washed away by meeting the band. And so does Guts accept the company of people outside of Puck and Casca, letting them travel with him, each of them making Guts accept or change a certain part of himself, and making him grow as a person. Unlike Griffith, who was surrounded by war demons and empty, meaningless relationships after his reincarnation, Guts has people that are actively helping him. Puck helped Guts open up a bit. Shirke saved Guts from turning into a monster. For Ness, taking care of the thing most important to Guts, which he is obviously unable to do. Isidro being his pupil, showing and pulling out a more human side to Guts, but also Guts trying to be a better of a teacher than Gambino. And Serpico, a strange guy, but still a reliable companion that fights alongside Guts and protects the party when he's out jumping on the enemy. And again, with the presence of people, Guts changes, even at points questioning whether he wants to pursue Griffith anymore, or if he's happy just having Casca back. This in turn leads to simple scenes like Guts putting a hat back on a witch's head, very impactful and endearing, our first sign of Guts finally learning to cope, instead of baiting himself in never-ending hatred. In Berserk, we see people bounce off one another. If Guts is one way, Griffith is the other. People bounce off each other, and in that way their influence grows in our lives and they change us. We learn something out of every relationship we have, and as that bouncing continues, we grow more human because of them. And what I think further cements this idea of mine as the quote-unquote meaning of Berserk is this little speech by Mira about relationships, which keeps spiraling in my own head. In my mind, human relationships are something that come together and break apart. I think it's about separating and then meeting again. It is the same with historical dramas. Breakups happen, but I think they also lead to encounters. Being alone is a normal part of being an adult. The people you meet after you go out into the world are completely different from the people you meet as a student. The relationships you form after you become someone and the relationships you get tangled up in while you're trying to become someone have different meanings, but both are important. I hope to portray that. Berserk is about the battle between Guts and Griffith, and both are stories of change. In that sense, the current Guts and Griffith are not set in stone. If Griffith is like this, Guts will be like this, and that's what I'll continue to focus on. And I think that last line is so fucking beautiful. There's this one scene in the manga where, after a long, excruciating battle, Guts lays on the ground, powerless and hurt. To be fair, that's not the first time he's been like that, and his malice always has him getting up. But in this scene, on the hill his gaze happens to look upon, he sees Griffith. Now, keep in mind, Guts left Griffith to become his own man, to have something of his own, and after the eclipse, his only dream has become hunting down Griffith himself. And it's at this moment where Guts closes his eyes on Griffith, sacrificing his own dream for the sake of his people, becoming the exact opposite of what Griffith is and ever was. And in that sense, his only equal, as he is his own man. Learning to appreciate and cherish what's more important in life, relationships, letting go of his own desires. What I'm trying to say is that Berserk is a story about humans and how to be human. A story about how our friends, lovers, and anyone we have relations with shape us to be the person that we are today. A story of how desire ruins a man, of how life is all about struggling with never-ending adversity and even stuff we might not be able to see or control. A story about coping with sadness and hatred, but at the center of it all, What connects all of that together is a story that talks about relationships. We all reach our breaking points eventually. Under enough pressure, humans can become monsters capable of only thinking of themselves, almost as hungry carnivores in the night. But that is exactly why we are social creatures. We simply can't live in loneliness. Griffith was and is forever alone in the pursuit of something grand. Guts, on the other hand, still hanging on to his humanity, struggles with unfathomable pain as he fights against the laws of the universe themselves, and yet he lives and copes together with his own group of companions. A life of no human relationships is a shallow life, devoid of all meaning and happiness. People commit heinous acts all the time, but never once do we question what might have broken them to lead to such an outcome. And then unknowingly, we are the ones that can at any point end up as them. And no one would understand us, because no one would attempt to comprehend us. The next time you see the kid in the back, talk to him. He might be as hostile, aggressive, and combative as Guts, but pull through. He might just be a lonely soul, scared of people, but nonetheless a good person. All of us deserve comfort. All of us deserve to have someone to talk to. All of us deserve love. It's basic human needs. It's through human relationships that we enrich ourselves, our horizons, and mature as people. It's through other humans that we change, grow, and break. But don't be scared of losing those relationships or being hurt. Because that's also another thing Berserk wants to say through relationships. Terrible, soul breaking things will happen. Stuff that will leave you petrified to your core. Stuff that will make a great man embrace the darkest, most violent parts of his own soul. But Berserk isn't a story about terrible things happening to people. It isn't about revenge, and it isn't about how nihilistic this world gets. It's about how the people who have been struck by such agonizing catastrophes come back and struggle against their own demons, against their own dark sides. Struggling to see the day when they can see the sunset and say, I thought never again could I watch the sunset and be this calm. You should cherish the time you spent with the people that hurt you. Learn stuff from those experiences and start coping with the loss. Never spiral out into hatred. As Goto says, hatred is a place the soul goes when it can't deal with sorrow. You'll forever burn yourself that way. You don't have enemies. None of us do. Don't let your malice eat you away. Stand up and struggle, and see the light which is sure to wait at the end of the tunnel. For happiness is a fleeting feeling, born and lost out of our relationships with people. But it's worth fighting for. Berserk is still continuing serialization under Koji Mori, which I believe will end up good because I do believe in Mori and Studio Gaga, but even if they didn't continue it, weirdly enough, the last manuscript Miura left is in some weird, almost satirical way, a fitting end. You see, the chapters that came before Miura's last depict Guts almost coming to terms with things, chapters of healing. Sure, he still has his struggles with Casca, but he sits still, patiently waiting, seeing the moonchild, letting him be with Casca and almost playing with him, ironically enough, the kid probably being his own child. It comes across to me almost with some sort of serenity. And then it transforms. It transforms into the man that caused all of Guts' pain. And it's there we see him, standing in front of both Guts and Casca, an omen of their unhappiness, almost signifying the end of this relatively peaceful time for Guts. And I think that, in of itself, is a statement that no matter how good, peaceful, and happy your life might get, horrible things will happen. It will still happen. The golden age of your life will not last forever. It will end, and you will heal from that. And when you do, you'll be happy. And then it might happen again. Terrible things happen again and again. And we continue to struggle and struggle and struggle until eventually our struggle turns into happiness. And we live to see the light of day, gazing upon the abyss we left behind, and we sit, proud of ourselves, cherishing the people that helped us come out of such a rut, but also remembering the people that brought us there. And that's what Berserk is, struggling against the darkest parts of ourselves and the darkest moments of our lives, caused by other people, healed by other people. And that's beautiful. And it's such a profound way to comment on relationships. Kentaro Miura found a way to teach us about relationships and how to deal with hardships caused by them using a cruel, dark, and unforgiving world. And I think that's magnificent. Rest in peace, Miura. And thank you.